Today at 6, a bruising set of local election results for the Conservatives, with Labour making big gains. Swindon is one of the key battleground councils Labour now controls, along with East Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. Sir Keir Starmer savours victory in Medway, an area the Conservatives had controlled for more than 20 years.
These are the key battlegrounds as we go into the next election, and make no mistake, this means that we are on course for a Labour majority at the next election.
Dejection for the Conservatives, who saw a collapse in support right across England. But the Prime Minister says he's sticking to his agenda.
The message I am hearing from people tonight is that they want us to focus on their priorities and they want us to deliver for them. And that's about halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the boats.
We'll have the very latest on all the election results. Also on the programme.
Here at Westminster Abbey, the final preparations have been made for the first coronation in 70 years.
Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Let's take the cake.
The King and the Prince and Princess of Wales have done a walkabout on the Mall and spoke about what their children were making of tomorrow's big day.
They're really well, thank you. Very excited. Excited, a bit nervous, obviously with a big day ahead. Can't wait.
And what about you and William?
Yeah, all good.
And memories of the last coronation. We speak to people who played a part in the ceremony of 1953.
And in the sport on BBC News, we'll get the latest from a huge game in Scotland tonight. Can Queen's Park return to the top division for the first time in 65 years?
Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. The Conservatives have suffered significant losses on a bruising night in the local elections in England, with the Labour Party making gains in key battleground areas. Rishi Sunak says the results are disappointing, but insists he'll carry on with his agenda, while Sir Keir Starmer claims his party is on course to win the next general election. Labour have taken control of councils in Swindon, East Staffordshire, Stoke-on-Trent and Medway. Now, with most of the results declared, this was the position of the three main parties a few minutes ago. Labour are the big winners, with more than 2,000 councillors, up by more than 400. The Tories have fewer than 2,000, down by nearly 800. And the Lib Dems have more than 1,200, also up nearly 300. Now, it means Labour have control of 59 councils, the Conservatives 27 and the Lib Dems 23. There are 70 councils with no overall majority. Now, if all Britain had voted today, following a similar pattern, the BBC predicts the share of votes to each party would look something like this, with Labour on 35%, the Conservatives on 26% and the Liberal Democrats on 20%, with others on 19%. OK, let's get the very latest and join our political editor, Chris Mason, who's live at Westminster for us now. Chris, over to you.
Clive, it was a long night, it's been a long day, little sleep and lots to digest. First and foremost, for many this evening, a new look local authority, new people providing those vital public services that you rely on every day. But if we take a step back, the bigger picture looks like this. It is grim for the Conservatives. It is good in their own places and in their own way for the Liberal Democrats and the Green Party. And Labour are chipper. They are now the biggest party in local government in England and Wales for the first time in a long time. And they think they're on their way to winning a majority at the next general election. But others do wonder if they're doing quite enough. You can measure elections in numbers, you can measure them in where the smiles and cheers are too. The Labour leader Keir Starmer was in Chatham in Kent this morning, where Labour took control of the council from the Conservatives.
You've done an absolutely stunning job here. You didn't just get it over the line, you blew the doors off. Yeah. Make no mistake, we are on course for a Labour majority at the next general election.
Look and listen to the contrast. silent and solitary. The Prime Minister delivering bacon sandwiches to party staff and insisting he's not changing course.
I'm not detecting any massive groundswell of movement towards the Labour Party or excitement for their agenda. What people want us to do is focus on their priorities. Halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the boats. Those are the country's priorities. Those are this government's priorities, and that's what we're going to deliver.
The Liberal Democrats are making something of an art form out of less than subtle campaign props.
3, 2, 1.
This, their latest, as party leader Ed Davey celebrated taking Windsor and Maidenhead in Berkshire from the Tories.
I'm so proud that when Katy Perry and Lionel Richie enter Windsor Castle for the coronation concert on Sunday, they'll be going into a ward that's represented by 3 brand new Liberal Democrat councillors. Let's go back and work even harder so we can beat the Conservatives at the next general election.
Labour took East Staffordshire from the Conservatives, and here they are doing the same in Swindon, a key general election battleground. Could time be up for this former Cabinet Minister, local Tory MP Robert Buckland? Stoke-on-Trent is such a highly contested political spot, people there can barely pop out for the groceries without being accosted by someone after their vote. No one party ran the council here until today. Now Labour do. And 250 miles down the road in Plymouth, a similar picture. Labour winning in the kind of places that help determine who ends up running the country. The problem the Conservatives have faced is a range of competitive opponents. The Liberal Democrats appear to have finally banished the baggage of their years in coalition government, beating the Tories not just here in Windsor, but in the Midlands, in Stratford-on-Avon, and in and around Totnes in Devon, and Chichester in West Sussex, among others. There was a first for the Green Party today, securing a majority on a council in England, something they've never done before.
We've got a brilliant result so far.
They will run the local authority in mid-Suffolk and made big advances in East Suffolk and came from almost nowhere to become the biggest party in East Hertfordshire.
We're seeing record Green wins in rural and urban areas from Labour and from the Conservatives. People looking at the other parties feeling disillusioned by the government, uninspired by Labour and voting for Green councillors in ever greater numbers.
So what could all of this mean for who might end up in power here at Westminster after the general election expected next year? These elections were only in England, so didn't involve the Scottish National Party, among others. But the BBC's projected national share, how things might have looked if everyone could have voted today, was announced on our election special this afternoon.
You can see there that Labour is on 35%, the Conservatives on 26%, the Liberal Democrats on 20%, and others on 19%.
Digesting those numbers, the Conservatives' sniping, primarily in private for now, has begun.
Was it a disastrous night for the Conservatives, Prime Minister?
Little wonder, perhaps, the Prime Minister is finding comfort and distraction from the election aftermath by focusing on the international stage, welcoming world leaders to Downing Street ahead of the coronation tomorrow. Chris Mason, BBC News at Westminster.
Well, as we've been hearing, one of Labour's biggest victories was in Medway in Kent, which the Conservatives had controlled for more than 20 years. Labour won 33 of its 59 seats. That's up 11, with the Tories losing 13. Well, on a visit to Kent today, Sir Keir Starmer told Labour campaigners, you didn't just get it over the line, you blew the doors off. Our political correspondent Ben Wright has spent the day in Medway talking to voters about the issues most important to them.
The Medway towns revel in their connection to the novelist Charles Dickens. Labour had high hopes here, and the result has given the party a story to celebrate, seizing control of the council from the Conservatives for the first time in 20 years. In Rochester, I dropped into Georgia's florists. She switched her vote from Conservative to Labour.
You know, everyone's struggling, aren't they? There's so much unhappiness and everyone's struggling to feed their children and put clothes on their backs and things like that. And we needed more help.
And do you think that explains the shift here to Labour?
I think so, yes. personally, Labour sort of seem to be promising things that would help us in the future.
But are you going to stick with them at the general election, or is your vote still up for grabs?
I think my vote's still up for grabs.
Medway voted strongly for Brexit and has 3 Conservative MPs. But these elections suggest that support for the Tories could be cracking.
We voted for Brexit, but now something we do regret. I think we've been misled on that one as well. The country, I think, has just come to a bit of a standstill in general. We need to speak out now before there is a general election and let the government know how we feel.
I personally think they've had their day and it's time for a change.
Yeah, I think they've lost our votes.
Yeah.
As she put out her bunting, Julie told me she had voted for her local Conservative councillor.
This is very much a local issue for me. I've no idea how I'll vote next year. I like Rishi Sunak, didn't like Boris. I'm hoping that they'll do a good job, but I think they don't do themselves any favours at all, with all the scandals and everything, so I think it puts doubts in people's minds.
Sir Keir Starmer came to Chatham at the start of the campaign and he's celebrating here today. This corner of Kent hasn't shown any enthusiasm for Labour since the days of Tony Blair, but Sir Keir hopes that he's found a winning message that can sink the Conservatives at the general election here in Medway and beyond. But it's a Labour message that didn't hit the right note for Jenny, who I met at a mother's singing group in Gillingham. She voted Green.
I felt like Conservatives and Labours had a bit of the same message. Local communities, they are on their knees in Medway and they need improvement before more houses get built.
Are you decided how you're going to vote at the general election?
No, not yet.
These are hard times for the Tories, and the success of opposition parties across England shows the scale of challenge facing the Conservatives as the general election gets close. Ben Wright, BBC News in Rochester.
OK, let's get the very latest from our political editor, Chris Mason, who's at Westminster. Chris, this was, of course, Rishi Sunak's first big electoral test. How did he do?
Well, it was grim. He didn't do very well. That's the blunt truth. Now, you speak to those around him and they make the argument that they think things would have been much, much worse had he not been there, that he is the man to steady the Conservative ship. But memories aren't that short and plenty of voters could remember the chaos that came before. But tonight, the recriminations within the Conservative Party are well and truly underway. Let me give you a sense of that by inviting you into my notebook. I'll share a quote with you from a figure loyal to the former Prime Ministers, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. This particular figure saying Rishi has no option but to own these results. He was the Chancellor who presided over the stagnation of the British economy and taxes put up to their highest level in 70 years. Little wonder so many previous Conservative voters failed to back us yesterday. Now, let's be clear, these sources are not popping up in front of the cameras and there's no expectation that there's going to be a move against Rishi Sunak. The Conservatives have rather sated their appetite for insurrection, civil war and chaos, but those critics of the Prime Minister beginning to re-find their voice. What about the bigger picture tonight? What I'm struck by, Clive, is the central truth, really, that politics is undeniably competitive again, but not necessarily definitive. It's very hard, you know, when you look at politics from tonight's vantage point, to see how either the Conservatives or Labour can be super confident that they would win a general election with a majority to call their own. Oh, and one final thought, I suspect the Conservatives and Rishi Sunak will be mighty glad that the small matter of the coronation is about to wipe politics off the news for at least a day or two.
All right, Chris, thank you for that. Chris Mason there live at Westminster. Now, junior doctors in Scotland have voted overwhelmingly in favour of a 3-day strike as part of their pay dispute with the Scottish Government. Their union, BMA Scotland, has called for a pay increase of 23.5% above inflation. Holyrood previously said this was simply unaffordable. The head of the World Health Organization has declared the global COVID-19 emergency over. Our medical editor Fergus Walsh is with me. Is that it? It's over?
It's largely a symbolic moment, Clive, a recognition from the WHO that COVID is not the global threat it once was. The death rate from COVID has plummeted, largely down to the success of vaccines protecting against severe illness. 13 billion doses have been administered worldwide, plus a lot of natural immunity. Most of us have had COVID now at least once or twice. But it doesn't mean to say we won't get a new variant to displace Omicron in its various forms, which has been dominant now for a very long time. And it doesn't mean the pandemic is over. COVID is here to stay, sadly. It's still a threat, and that's why the over 75s and those with weakened immune systems are being urged to have their spring COVID vaccine booster. And the WHO says this is no time for complacency, and remember that 20 million people are estimated to have died worldwide.
Indeed. Okay, Fergus, thank you. Fergus Walsh. Now, on the eve of the coronation of King Charles III, thousands of people have been gathering along the procession route in central London. Let's join my colleague Jane Hill outside Westminster Abbey, where tomorrow's historic ceremony will take place. Jane.
Yes, Clive, thank you. Welcome to Westminster Abbey, which tomorrow will be a site of tradition, pomp and ceremony as King Charles is crowned alongside the Queen Consort. King Charles has been joined by the Prince and Princess of Wales for a walkabout this afternoon on the Mall to meet well-wishers from all over the world. But it has largely been a day of rehearsals and diplomatic duties for the King in advance of the coronation. Thousands of people have come here to London for the big day, and tens of millions are expected to watch the ceremony around the world. Our first report is from our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell.
Just a matter of hours to go now, and for those who've already taken up their places on the Mall, a visit from the King. On the other side of the Mall, William was preoccupied with the weather.
Thank you. I'm praying a bit of sunshine stays out, keep you all dry.
Catherine with the children, and Prince George's role as a page boy.
They're really well, thank you.
Very excited.
Excited, a bit nervous, obviously with a big day ahead, but no, they can't wait.
VIP guests are arriving in London. Prime ministers from the 14 other countries which have the British monarch as their head of state were at Buckingham Palace. Several of them are committed Republicans, but this really wasn't the moment for that kind of a discussion. Instead, from Prince William...
We're praying for the weather tomorrow. We need a bit of sunshine tomorrow.
And here's why the weather is on everyone's mind. This was Westminster Abbey for a period this morning. A little earlier, the King and Queen Consort had arrived for a full dress rehearsal, a run-through of all the elements of the service. And it's one of those elements, the homage of the people, which continues to cause comment. Jonathan Dimbleby is a long-standing friend of the King from his days as Prince of Wales. He believes the homage, where the public is invited to swear allegiance to the King, is misguided.
I can think of nothing that he would find more abhorrent. He's never wanted to be revered. He's never wanted, so far as I know, to have anyone pay homage to him except in mock terms as a joke. He wants, I think, to feel that people will share in the event. And I don't quite know how this might have happened.
Buckingham Palace said Mr. Dimbleby was speaking on his own account. In a lighter vein, a surprise for travellers.
My wife and I wish you and your families a wonderful coronation weekend.
Wherever you are travelling, we hope you have a safe and pleasant journey.
Rail passengers are hearing some familiar voices over the public address system.
And remember, please mind the gap.
Inside the Abbey, all the flower arrangements are in place. And from the palace tonight, a glimpse of the Coronation Theatre, the area in front of the high altar with the coronation chair on which the King will be crowned in the centre, and other chairs to one side and the rear. Ceremonial London is ready. The morning awaits, and there will be many thousands who will be echoing Prince William's hope that, just possibly, the weather will be kind. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News.
Well, our home editor, Mark Easton, is with me. A big day tomorrow, but what's your assessment, Mark, of the levels of excitement, enthusiasm for a big day of pageantry.
Oh yes, this is of course the third big day of royal pageantry that we've had, in 15 months. We had the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in February last year, then of course her funeral in September, and now the coronation. I don't think the public probably feels deprived of opportunities for patriotism and pageantry. That being said, I think, for a lot of people, times are quite hard. I suspect that, they will be thinking, do I really need another day of sort of ostentatious ceremony? The polls certainly suggest it's not total enthusiasm out there. But I think the designers of this coronation will be determined that it's more than just an opportunity for a knees up and a day off work, that it will somehow touch something in our increasingly diverse society. It reminds us of the things that bind us, a shared history, shared tradition, and actually a shared way of life.
Mark, for now, thank you, Mark Easton. Well, tomorrow's events will bring back memories for those who played a part in the last coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953. Our royal correspondent, Daniela Relf, has been talking to 3 people who were at that coronation 70 years ago.
Memories may fade, but some never lose their lustre. Gavin Ross was a scholar at Westminster School 70 years ago. It was the scholar's job to deliver the Vivat Regina, the musical anthem to welcome the monarch.
So we were high up, and the Queen arrived a little early in the music, so she'd already got quite a way in before we shouted Vivat. We knew we were privileged, but being young boys, we had plenty of other things to do, and it didn't sort of hit us so much that we were uniquely privileged.
This is your amazing scrapbook, Eve, where you kept...
As well as the sound, the look of the coronation mattered too. Eve Morris was a 17-year-old apprentice for designer Norman Hartnell, who made the Queen's coronation gown. Her scrapbook is rich in detail. Designs, fabrics, and the letter with instructions for the big day.
Please take sandwiches with you and a thermos flask, as coffee will not be available.
Eve's job was inside the Abbey, a needle and thread in her pocket, ready for any emergency repairs.
I was living at home at the time. I was only 17. I was still at home, and none of the family had cars, so the baker had to take me to the railway station to get me to the train. I can remember seeing the Queen come virtually past me where I was standing, quite close to me, catching her eye as she went by, quite close. I had a better seat than a lot of the seats in the Abbey.
91 years old and still playing. Now a Chelsea pensioner, Basil King was amongst the crowds lining the procession route on Coronation Day as a trumpeter with the band of the Royal Military School of Music.
There was excitement around, but I felt, just me I suppose, a little bit proud that I'd been on such an occasion. I mean, I was only one out of thousands, but the lads in the band, all those from the School of Music, they were all the same sort of mind. It's been a great day, even apart from the weather.
Universally modest about their contributions, they will all be watching closely tomorrow. Daniela Ralph, BBC News.
Well, the UK is the only European country that still uses regalia at a monarch's coronation. The crown, orb and sceptres are symbols of royalty. But what do these ancient objects signify?
The King's orb and sceptres were made for the last King Charles II in 1661. They've been used in coronations since then. The orb is a hollow gold globe, mounted with jewels and topped with a cross, symbolising the Christian world. The sceptre with cross represents power and justice. The Star of Africa on top is cut from the largest diamond in the world. The king will also be presented with the sceptre with dove, also called the rod of equity and mercy. It represents the monarch's spiritual role. St Edward's chair was made in 1300 by order of Edward I to enclose the Stone of Destiny, a symbol of the Scottish monarchy. It'll sit on the mosaic floor in front of the high altar. St Edward's crown is only used at a coronation. We're familiar with a representation of it on postboxes or on the cover of a passport. It's solid gold, set with 444 jewels, including rubies, sapphires and garnets.
Well, let's talk about the crowds now, because you may know keen royal watchers have been camping out near Buckingham Palace in some cases for many days now, eager to witness tomorrow's historic event. Our correspondent Ashley John-Baptiste has been talking to people who were there waiting for a glimpse of the royal procession. He joins me now from the Mall. Ashley.
Yes, Jane. Well, look, the excitement among royal fans camped here outside Buckingham Palace has been a constant throughout the day. And even now, there is such a palpable sense of anticipation. There have been showers. That hasn't dampened the mood. And I think what's clear is that for fans, supporters here, nothing can get in the way of what will be for them and many a historic moment.
Among the tents, decorations and crowds, a family of royal supporters spanning 3 generations.
I don't think too many people will have been to 2 coronations. I was here 70 years ago for the Queen's coronation.
It's just an amazing experience, really, being here with Grandma, who was obviously here for the coronation many years ago.
And it's not just families here, new friendships are being formed.
So you guys have just met, is that right?
Yeah, well, she came up last night with her tin, and you can't help but just make friends, you know. It's a really cool social time to be together, to meet different people, so it's fun.
Absolutely, and again, as I've said, the atmosphere in here, you can really feel it. So from different countries, you manage to have friends because you have the same intention to see the royals.
The build-up to tomorrow isn't being felt just here. At this school in Londonderry, the celebrations are well underway.
We're like really excited for the King's coronation.
I think it'll be amazing, and I'm really excited for it.
Back outside Buckingham Palace this afternoon, a surprise appearance.
The man they've all been waiting for, His Majesty the King, taking a walk along the Mall to greet some of the royal fans. What a surprise.
And no one wasn't sure how we were going to feel, but I feel as proud now as I did when we buried the Queen. So.
Did you get a handshake?
I did, and it was just like amazing. I can't get over it.
Here with us all. Are you feeling okay?
And this was the moment when the Princess of Wales spoke to a fan on the phone who couldn't be there in person.
Do. Well, come and say hi to you when you're back over here, but I hope you get better soon.
Now we feel we've got a good spot for tomorrow.
With a long night ahead, some are more prepared than others.
Are you camping out?
We are camping out, but not in a tent. We've just got our chairs.
You're camping out with just chairs?
Just
it's a very comfy chair.
And with the big day approaching, the mood is as high as ever.
Long live the King!
Ashley John-Baptiste, BBC News.
Well, that is all from us here at Westminster Abbey for now, on the eve of the coronation of King Charles III. Certainly starting to feel very busy here, a lot of people here, and a lot of noise as well. Helicopters, police convoys, all in the build-up to tomorrow's ceremony. Just a reminder, the coverage, it all begins tomorrow morning, 7:30 tomorrow morning. Our coverage begins on BBC One, BBC Two and on the iPlayer. But from us here, for now, at the Abbey, it's back to Clive.
OK, Jane, thank you to you and the team there at Westminster Abbey. Now, we all want to know what the weather's going to be like for the big Coronation Weekend. No pressure, Darren Bet.
Oh, goodness. If I could make it dry, warm and sunny this weekend, believe me, I would. Unfortunately, there is rain in the forecast. And today has been a very loud weather day. We've had some dramatic clouds today, bringing some heavy downpours, a lot of thunder and lightning flashing away. The showers have eased across southern England. We've got 1 or 2 storms for Northern Ireland, but most of the thunderstorms at the moment are in eastern parts of England. But as we lose the heat of the sun, so the showers will just decay, and most places will become dry overnight. Just 1 or 2 light showers, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland into the night, but by the morning there's a bit of rain arriving in the far south and southwest of England, and temperatures probably starting at 8 or 9 degrees in the morning. May not rise an awful lot, unfortunately, in London. The forecast is for some rain at times, a lot of cloud and temperatures lower than today. Here's that rain. You can see how it works its way slowly up across southern England, across Wales, the Midlands. For northern England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, there'll be some sunshine, but here there could be some heavy, possibly even thundery showers. Temperatures in the sunshine getting up to 17 degrees. Underneath the cloud and rain, it's going to be nearer 14 or 15 Celsius. That rain does move away from most areas overnight, clinging to some of these eastern coasts. On the whole, it's drier, but not completely dry. We've got a few sharp showers, mainly Scotland and down the eastern side of England. But there will be some sunshine around, and it should be warmer as well, at temperatures peaking at around 19 or 20 degrees. There is some more rain, though, to come overnight. These weather fronts will push their way in from the Atlantic, moving their way eastwards, followed by some showers as well. So very unsettled over the Coronation Weekend, I'm afraid. Some rain for some places tomorrow, and then it's a bit drier, but still a few showers on Sunday. We've got some heavy showers, though, on Monday following that rain from overnight. Clive.
OK, Darren, thank you. Darren Bet with that. That's it. I'll be back at 10, but you can keep up with all the latest developments on the BBC website as the news continues here on BBC One. So let's join our colleagues across the nations and regions for all the news where you are. Bye for now.